Welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a list for Ninetales that I top 8 in a local League Cup with. It's a pretty standard list overall, kind of inspired by a couple lists I saw live with some little tweaks here and there. But I'll just kind of go over it real quick with you guys. I played one Sudowoodo. I started with this thing like 4 or 5 times throughout the day, and it was just super annoying every time because you basically have to get the Manaphy out and attach to it, or attach a DCE to retreat. So if you do play this card, I think you have to play Floodstone, or some kind of better switch option than actually having to attach to it. But it was good in the situations that I actually was able to get it out. But when I started with it, it was just really bad. I played one Koko. Cause moving forward, I'd probably go to 2 of these just because the card was just really, really strong. Starting with it, hitting the turn 1 flying flip 20 to everything, or if they're drawing dead, just going into it and just hitting for 20 spread on everything is just really good. Helps out a lot in certain matchups. 2 Tapu Lele is pretty standard. 4-3 Ninetales. Ultimately, I would go to a 4-4 on this because in my top 8 game against Lorantis Bulu, I actually prized my third Ninetales, which could have given me game. So moving forward, I'd probably go to a 4-4 Ninetales on this. One Manaphy, this card was alright. I started with it kind of a lot, which was annoying. And then one game, my top 8 game 2, I actually load started it and just drew past until I lost. So moving forward, I probably wouldn't play Manaphy either, just because I think eliminating bad starts with this deck is what you want to do. I think that's how give you better chances of winning games. One more Octillery was pretty good too. It was good in the situations where I got it out, but it was bad in the situations where it was prized. And ultimately, if you're gonna play this card, I'd probably play it at a 2-2, or not at all. But it's one of those things where I don't know if 2-2 is really worth the space for it. 4 Aqua Patch, 1 Field Blower, 1 Stretcher, pretty standard there. If you're considering not going to 4-4 Ninetales, I'd consider a second rescue option like Rescue Strecher or Super Rod to kind of make up for that. 4 Ultra Ball, 3 VS Seeker. I didn't hate this all day. The 4th one would have been okay, but I think 3 was fine too. It gave me kind of a better track of my VS Seekers, and it kind of made it so I didn't dead draw them a lot, so that was kind of nice. 4 Cs, this clumped a lot, to be perfectly honest. I would probably go to a 3-1 split on a different stadium. Probably Parallel to get rid of to take out the Sudowoodo, or maybe even Brooklyn to get the Vulpixes out early. Or if you play the Remoraid version, probably Brooklyn would probably be the better call just to get the Remoraid. But I think C's is the better stadium overall. If you're gonna play a split, play heavier of C's because C's is really important in a lot of matchups. 1 Hex Maniac, 3 Lysandre was really, really strong throughout the day, and I'd ultimately probably go. I would probably do this for a lot of decks now moving forward, just because I think 3 Lysandre is really strong in this format. Where if I would probably say 8 to 10, or probably 6 to 7 times out of 10, whenever you get N to 2, you're most likely looking for a Lysandre. So having 3 of them in your deck with 3 VS Seeker is just really strong. 4-2 is basically the same thing, but it's one of those things where having that third actual copy of the Lysandre is actually sometimes better. But 4 Ed, pretty standard there too. Center Lady Fan Club. Fan Club would be switched to Brigette, especially if you play the Octillery version, because that extra Pokemon just makes it more worth it. And I feel like whenever you a lot of the times turn 1 you're Tapu Lele for this card anyway, so you're not really grabbing the second Lele with it, unless you need it. Unless you absolutely have to chain it. 9 times out of 10, you're probably just grabbing double Vulpix or Vulpix Remoraid or something like that. So I'd probably go to Brigette moving forward, just because double Vulpix and a Remoraid is really strong if you play the Remoraid version. But if you don't, either way, hitting double Vulpix and a Koko is really strong too. So I'd probably go to Brigette again. Center Lady was pretty good overall. It's one of those cards where if you need a spot for a tech, I'd probably cut it. But if you don't, if you can't think of any other techs you'd want to play, this is a good card to help you heal damage off to make it a little bit more tanky. One Kukui is pretty standard too. I've seen lists with 2, but ultimately I think 1 is okay when you play 3VS. A lot of the time when you're Blizzard edging, you're usually doing it like twice to 3 times a game. And a lot of the time I never really had Kukui when I needed it. It was always just a choice band, and with spread it was always enough anyway. So I would almost even consider cutting it from the deck, but it is nice just to hit it for the 180 when you do have it. It's really clutch, but I never really hit it when I needed it, and I could see the merit for going to 2, or maybe even 3 Lele for that reason, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I think Choice Bands is overall better to hit the 190 compared to the Kukui for the 180, but it also depends a lot on what you're playing against too. 3 Sycamore, I would probably go to 4 on this. If you're playing Octillery, 3 is fine, but if not, 4 is probably the better way to go. Just because even in a Garb Infested format, there's just a lot of the time where you're not really discarding a lot of stuff, like a lot of items. When you Sycamore, and you can plan it better with Lele and like with 4 Ed, and you have the more options that way. So I think going to 4 Sycamore isn't a terrible idea. If you play Octillery though, keep it at 3. It's just better that way. 3 Choice Band and then a 4-8. I've seen 7 Energy. I think 8 is probably the better way to go, just because you need to hit patches and you need to hit the attachments for turn. Like missing turn 1 Energy is really, really hard for this deck. To be able to chain Blizzard Edges, especially in matchups where you need to chain it, like against like Darkrai or like Bulu or something like 180, 190 HP Pokemon. It's just better you have to chain it. So I think moving forward, 8 Energy is probably the way to go. I actually did make an updated list for this deck. Probably was something that I would play going forward with this. And mainly this is just because of like Madison, of what happened in Madison, and then also like also just moving forward with the deck from what I learned playing the deck. I ultimately went to a more streamlined version without Octillery, just because I think Octillery, again, I think you have to play it at 2-2 or you don't play it at all. I opted to play a Shaymin instead. I just upped the supporter count to 4 Sycamore, 4 VS Seeker. Now, right now, I've got the 2 Lysandre build right now with the 4 VS Seeker, and I may go back to the 3-3. I just haven't really tested it. I haven't really decided yet what would be better moving forward, just because there wasn't a whole lot of Garb that made day 2 in Madison, but there was a few. So I think building your deck towards Garb is still a good idea, a good way to go, but I think you don't have to be as strict anymore if it's literally not 60% of the format moving forward. But I did end up putting in a second Koko promo as well and an Oricorio. And the second Koko promo is really good, just mainly because of its free retreat, really. Being able to free retreat after they knock something out, being able to patch is really good. And then also with the spread option is just really good as well, with the 1 prizer option. And then Oricorio is really just for Vespiquen. I think this deck has a decent Vespiquen matchup as it is, but it's one of those things where it's 2 prizes versus 1 prizes a lot of the time, unless you're hitting like a lot of spread damage knockouts. But it's one of those things where it can give you the edge. Now, I don't think you really need to tech against Vespiquen, but if you're expecting a ton of Vespiquen in your area, probably just play it. There's just no reason not to. You could play a Karen too. That'll also counter Vespiquen pretty well. But this is basically a counter spot for whatever you're playing against in the metagame. For example, if you're playing against Metagross, you could play an Espeon EX to de-evolve them. Decidueye, you could do the same thing. Basically just tech it for your meta and go from there. If you feel like this deck has good matchups for your metagame, just play it as another consistency card, probably a 3rd Lysandre. But that's probably what that's what that space is for right now. Right now I just have it as an Oricorio, but it's really just a counter spot. 2 Tapu Lele is standard again. 4 Ninetales, I think that's the way to go going forward. Either that or, like I said, a 4-3 and like 2 recovery options, like a 2 Stretcher or a Stretcher to Super Rod could be good as well. 4 Patch, standard. The one thing I could consider going forward is playing a second Vilblor, especially if Belt becomes popular, because I think that with Fighting Fury Belt gives this deck a lot of trouble, actually, because you want things to have low HP so that way you can get quick knockouts with like the spread and the snipes and everything else. But like a 220 HP Pokemon, you can't one shot it. So you have to like spread a couple turns and then be able to one shot it. It just takes some time. Whereas you could just double field blower and get rid of it. But I haven't really seen anything that would be worth the spot. So I just kept it at 1 for now. I went ahead and went to 4 via Seeker. Again, that could change to 3-3 very easily. And I think ultimately, moving forward, it might be the better way to go to 3-3 via Seeker for 3 Lysandre. But I think I have to test more decks more times to really know the answer to that. I went ahead and split the stadiums. I think, like I said, Rough Seas was clumpy a lot. I think 3 is a good number for it, but I also decided to play a parallel for the Sudowoodo option. Like, that was why I played it, was because to limit your bench, your opponent's bench, and with this you can do that as well. The only downside to be playing parallel over this is that you're reducing your own damage, so you have to be careful with that. It does reduce Ice Blade damage as well. So basically, if you hit the parallel early, you can Koko spread early, and it should not matter. But it's one of those things where you just have to be very careful with it going forward, just because it will reduce the damage, and you just have to be aware of that. Or it can reduce your damage. The main other reason why I played it too is just so you can get rid of your Shaymins. You can get rid of like a huge Ninetales with a ton of damage on it with no energy that you retreated. Just get rid of it. Or like Kokos or Lele's, or basically there's like stuff that they can just snipe off for game or whatever. You can just parallel yourself out of it. Also reduce like Vespiquen damage, which is really strong too. I went ahead and switched over to Brigette from Fan Club. I think even without Octillery, it's still really strong because you can still get double Vulpix and a Koko, or even triple Vulpix is really good too, because you just want to chain Ninetales. That's the big thing about this deck, is you want to be able to switch between Ninetales and Seas and reduce the damage and Ice Path and snipe around and just do all kinds of goofy stuff with this. Hex Maniac is still a staple. Again, I could go up to 3 Lysandre, 3 VS, but it's one of those things where it's ultimately for right now is a preference, but there will be, as more people play with this format going forward and how, like, playing against Garb and playing against all this other stuff, I think that answer will kind of become more clear. But for right now, I think it's kind of more of a preference thing. 4 Ed, 1 Kukui, 4 Sycamore, again, like, just because I took out the Octillery, that was the main reason I went back up to 4 Sycamore. You just want to be able to draw the supporters when you need them, ultimately. And then the rest of the list is the same: 3 Choice Band, 4 DC, and 8 Energy. So it was one of those things where ultimately, moving forward, I think it's just better just to streamline it over the playing Octillery, just because I think you have to play it at a 2-2, and it just takes up a lot of space. That way, the 1-1 is just kind of unreliable a lot of the time. But this is basically what I would play this deck moving forward. I do think that ultimately, with the new format, like Vikavolt, Metagross, Vespiquen, Zoroark, all kinds of crazy stuff that came out from Madison, I think this deck has a lot of potential, but I also do think that it has a lot of potential for bad matchups too. Like Metagross, if you're not teching for Metagross and you play against Metagross, you lose. Like, there's nothing you can do against that deck, unless you, like I said, take the Espeon EX, or I don't even know what else. Maybe like a Flareon, but I don't think that would even be good. But I think that if you do think you're playing against Metagross and you decide you want to play this deck, I think you should tech it at Espeon EX. I think that'd be really solid. But other than that, I don't really see anything else that can help you. And then, like, Vikavolt could be really bad too, just because if they hit, like, the turn 2 Vikavolt, attaching a bunch of energies to Bulus with choice bands that can one-shot you. Koko, Tapu Thunder is pretty strong too if they get it at a point where you have, like, 5 energies on board. Like DC on a Koko and, like, 3 energies on a Mac Ninetales and a one-shot of Ninetales. So it's one of those things where it could be really strong against it, but again, I don't know. I haven't really tested this deck against those decks. I basically, in that League Cup, I played against 2 Volcanions, a Decidueye Ninetales, a Darkrai Dragonair deck, and 2 Tapu Bulus is ultimately what I played against, and I lost to Tapu Bulu in top 8. Actually, that was the only thing I lost to all day was Tapu Bulu. just because I just couldn't hit Ninetales actually, honestly. But this is how I play the deck moving forward. If you're at this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. Helps out by subscribing as well. If you're not a subscriber, it definitely helps me out a ton. Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/ChubbyChalupaTCG is what I'll stream on Twitch. I'm starting up a Facebook page, Chubby Chalupa TCG. It's kind of bare right now. I do apologize about that, but I am kind of getting that in the works to try to get you guys updates on what I'm playing, what videos I'm posting, that kind of thing. And then my Twitter at Crabber914. I post right now just a lot of updates on when I'm posting videos, but I will be using that a little bit more and more for other things as well. But thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope this gave you some insight about the deck. Either way you decide to play it, if you are decide to play it moving forward, I think it is a good play for coming up tournaments like Mexico. I think it's a pretty decent play for. Just be ready for Vespiquen and be ready for Metagross, because I think people will play it because it's hyped. But and Vigavolt's pretty hyped too, so I'd probably watch out for that as well. But it can handle them pretty decently. Metagross is the only exception where I'm just like, no, unless you absolutely tech for it. But I think this deck has a pretty good time against all the other stuff too, so I think it'll be good moving forward. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys got some insight, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.